Dan Illman, Mike here, taking a look at race number 7 at Belmont at the Big A on Thursday. It's our DRF race of the day, and it's the Gio Ponti Stakes. $135,000 is the purse. Shop now at DRF.com, 10% off all DRF past performances. Coupon code is DRFTV10. There's your QR code. This is a great deal with Breeders' Cup right around the corner. Let's take a look at the field for the Gio Ponti, the Thursday race of the day, a mile on the turf for 3-year-olds. We have got a field of 10, 11 through 13 also eligibles. The 14 is a main track only. This is a fairly wide open race, Mike. Royal Majesty for Belmont is the 7-2 morning line favorite, dropping in class and distance.
Seems like he needs this little bit of class relief for this race. I mean, he's run fine. They tried him in 3 straight graded stakes races, 2 grade ones. He ran fine in those races, and he just wasn't quite good enough. And it also feels like those longer distances, maybe they didn't really suit him.
Let's throw up our Time Form US pace projector, a mile on the turf, and this race could favor front runners. Not a lot of pace expected. It's not like Donegal Momentum, the 9 to some burner that wants to get to the lead. She actually rallied from off the pace last time out, but that pretty much underscores there's not a lot of pace in here. I think the 4, the Process, is going to be aggressively ridden out of there by Jorge Ruiz.
Yeah, I can see that horse certainly going forward in here. And even as I say that, though, and I'm with you on Donegal Momentum. It's not like he's a blazer, let's say, but he's fast. And I do think that this would be a spot to sort of send this horse out of there and try to make the lead with him. In that turf debut last time, he did bobble pretty hard at the start of that race. And so I think that sort of forced Castellano to take a little bit of a hold of it.
The 5 and the 7 are also horses that have done well when forwardly placed in their races. They could get up close. The 8 and the 10 share the fastest Time Form US late pace rating. We'll start things off with a long shot. That's the number 1, Ruddy Buddy, coming in from Colonial Downs after being beaten in a restricted handicap. Wired that day by the favorite, Sky's Not Falling. Faced some solid older horses in that race. Back in with 3-year-olds here, but probably just has to run a lifetime best. This is a tough group.
Yeah, it just seems like he's sort of a weird horse to see in this race. It's not like he's got the credentials to make him a major contender in a race like this, Dan. They have brought this horse into New York in the past to run in stakes races, and it really hasn't worked out.
It's really nice to see the 2, Take Me to Church, back in the entries. This horse made his North American debut in the Saranac, and it looked like he was going to fire down towards the inside of the 3/16 when a horse unfortunately went down in front of him and completely wiped Take Me to Church out. It was a very scary incident. Here he is. I think it's great that he's back in the entries and feeling good. And he kept some good company overseas. He's a tactical horse. If he runs some of his overseas races, he's very tough for Brad Cox.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And even as I say that, I mean, this is a horse who was 1 for 7 on turf over there. But he did keep good company. He ran some good races. And I'm with you on the Saranac. It kind of felt like he was unlucky there. We'll see how he responds to a spill like that, because he took a pretty hard hit in there and went down. We'll see how he recovered from it.
I wonder if Piper's Factors found a good spot shipping down from Woodbine for an underrated trainer. Let's watch this one's most recent effort. It's a victory in the Toronto Cup going a mile, but keep in mind a 1-turn mile over the E.P. Taylor turf course. This pace was solid. Piper's Factor made a solid move into the teeth of the pace, makes the lead here and keeps on going. The 3rd place horse would come back to win a grade 3 at Woodbine over the Synth with a 92 buyer.
I liked this performance from this horse. And I was, sort of trying to figure out what took them so long to run him on the grass there. But I guess they were trying to get him to the King's Plate, which didn't ultimately work out. They got him to turf for this race. I liked everything about this performance. I know it was yielding ground, but he did move early in there. He took over. He didn't change leads through the stretch, but it's not like he ever stopped finding in there. He got a good figure for that performance, too. I thought this horse was pretty interesting.
The Process, the number 4, seems like a late bloomer for Cherie DeVaux. A winner 2 starts back at Colonial going a mile as the favorite, and I thought got a very nice trip that day. Then showed up in the Saranac and pushed the pace, and then there was all that, the spill in the stretch. I'm not sure it really affected the Process as much as a couple of others. I thought he was getting a little bit tired when that occurred, but this horse does have good speed.
Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like, the Saranac was maybe a mild disappointment. Not that he was one of the favorites in there, but I didn't see anything wrong with his trip. And it looked like he was a beaten horse when all the trouble occurred in that race. That being said, I also felt like he had really improved in his prior 2 starts for Cherie DeVaux. It feels like there's something there with this horse, Dan. They're going to press on here and try a little bit of a step back in class, a little bit of a step back in distance. I think he's going to run well in here. I'm not sure if he's good enough.
In a jam, the number 5 is a very hardy horse. He's already been to the post 15 times. He's a stakes winner on synth. He is grade 2 placed on turf. That was the Secretariat 2 starts back. A race where he sat the pocket and maybe they stayed in a little bit too long with him. It looked like he was in some traffic. I'm not sure he wins that race with a good trip. And last time out of Kentucky Downs, I'm not going to fault that race for him at all.
Yeah, I kind of look at him the same way. I don't really have a lot to add to that. That I wasn't, quite convinced that he was, necessarily good enough to beat this field, assuming everybody shows up with their good race. But his overall form's fine. I wanted to give him a big excuse for the Secretariat 2 back. I'm not sure it really mattered, but he did get stuck inside for a long way there.
To me, the 6 Palm Tree is one of the more interesting horses in this race. He showed some ability earlier in his career, and his most recent start was his first race off of a 9-month layoff, and they ran him over a very testing course to return off of a layoff. Kentucky Downs. It's a first level allowance. He runs on okay as the beaten favorite to be third, but I just think he gained a ton from a fitness standpoint. I think Brendan Walsh is a fantastic trainer, and I think he's found a good spot for this guy.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things to keep in mind, is that you sort of I was sort of not that impressed with his races, his first 3 turf races, but he was a 2-year-old then, and now he's a 3-year. He certainly has a right to take a step forward. He does have to lose Lasix for this, which is something that you have to keep in mind. I don't know, man. I just didn't like his races enough last year to really get that interested in him. And when he almost won the Pulpit, I mean, Noted was so much the best in that race that's not even funny. I mean, it wasn't as close as the final margin makes it seem. And even the Bourbon, I mean, he got into late trouble in that race. But to me, and again, opinions will vary, but to me, he got into late trouble in that race because he wasn't good enough and he didn't have enough horse to hit the seam when it was there for him.
Full Nelson, the number 7, blossomed over the winter when switched to turf at Tampa Bay Downs, reeling off 3 consecutive victories, including a win in the Columbia. Maybe they reached a little bit too high in the Transylvania, but he had a tough outside post and was wide for most of the way. Then he went to the bench and he came back in the tail of the cat off of a short layoff. I thought he ran just fine. He was taking on Carson's Run in here, who runs him down. Carson's Run came back, won the Saratoga Derby with an 89, then ran second in the Rich Nashville Derby at Kentucky Downs with the same number. I think this horse, Full Nelson's, a little bit underrated.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, maybe that's the big takeaway. He's no match in this race, Dan, but he's no match for a horse that's gotten really, really good since then. And he did manage to prevail for second. I mean, he's not flashy. There's nothing that flashy about him. Doesn't have big figures, but he's got a great running style and he shows up every time.
Yo Daddy ended up finishing a second in the Saranac last time out. Again, it was a situation where we had that spill in there. I'm not sure he would have won if the spill wasn't there. Maybe it actually dresses him up a little bit.
Yeah, I think it might too. To me, he's a tough call. I do want to point out. I mean, he's run some good races on both surfaces. But I kind of feel like he might be a little bit better as a dirt horse. But listen, Linda Rice added the blinkers 2 starts back, and it looked like the figure didn't improve at all. It made a big difference for this horse. He was much more engaged in that race, and he just blew that field off the track on dirt. And he did run fine last time. I'm kind of with you. I don't think it made a huge difference as far as him winning that race or not. But there was a lot going on in the stretch of that race.
He has certainly come a long way since Linda claimed this horse, and it's notable. Irad Ortiz takes the mount for the first time in the Gio Ponti. Donegal Momentum is up next. He's very lightly raced. He's barely scratched the surface of his potential, and he put it together nicely in his turf debut last time out. His first race around 2 turns. It was a good effort for Donegal Momentum. He sort of got a good trip in behind a slow pace, but the pace was slow. He had some things to overcome turning for home, and it was nice to see not only him kick by the leader, but really dig deep when that horse re-rallied.
Yeah, he was very game to win that race for sure. Ultimately, I'm with you, Dan. I mean, the pace just wasn't that fast. And this horse, not only breaking from the outside, but he bobbled pretty hard at the start of that race again. So Castellano sort of had to take a hold of him. They sat on the outside. I liked the run that he made around the turn. If I'm being honest, at the top of the stretch, I thought he was going to win a lot more comfortably than he did. So I wasn't necessarily thrilled with that, but still, all in all, pretty good turf debut for this horse.
Royal Majesty, again, dropping out of longer distance races, dropping out of grade 1 races, in against Carson's Run last time out in the Saratoga Derby. And that was a race where, again, I thought he worked out a good trip. He was tracking a pretty solid pace. I just don't think he's the type of horse as a Carson's Run. This company is much better for him, and I think he's more tactical than Timeform US projects him to be. I think if Junior Alvarado wants to get a little bit aggressive with him out of the gate, he can at least find a good spot without hopefully losing too much ground.
I agree with you. I think he's handy enough to get the right kind of trip in here, even from post 10. So we'll see how it works out. Just felt like I'm sort of with you on the last couple of races. He ran fine in there. He doesn't seem like a real grade 1 type. And I also just feel like those distances,
Yeah.
the longer distance, I feel like they don't really work for this horse. I like him cutting back for this race. He looks pretty well spotted here.
Chad Brown has 2 of the 3 horses on the also eligible list. I prefer the 11 Vesting, a horse that finished 3rd last time out behind Donegal Momentum. I just thought he was completely compromised by the lack of pace in that race.
Me too. He was the one I wanted out of there. If he gets in, I'm definitely using him. I actually like both of Chad's horses on the A list. The other one, Main Beach, still seems like he's figuring things out, but he's got a little bit of talent, that horse.
Let's take a look at our top selections for the Gio Ponti Stakes. I'm going to go with Royal Majesty in here. I just think he's going to work out a tactical trip. He's taking a little bit of a class drop. Shouldn't he be right in the thick of things when they turn for home?
Yeah, I think so. I think this is a good spot for him. I'm going to take him on top as well. Pending scratches. We'll see if either of those Chad horses get in. I'm going to use him. And I threw the 3 Dan Piper's factor in here. I'm very interested to see what he does here in a tougher spot.
Royal Majesty for me, Take Me to Church again. Good to see him back in the entries. I think he's tactical enough to work out a good trip. And just considering the company he faced over there, he deserves an opportunity at this level, at this distance. 10-3-4-2 for Mike, 10-2-5-9 for me. It's the Gio Ponti, the DRF race of the day for Thursday. Good luck.
Hey, buddy. Let me tell you something. If you really enjoyed this great content, just click the like and subscribe button right here. And if you enjoy the race of the day, stakes previews and lots more starring me, please click right here. You're not gonna regret it.